the jury has spoken. And, I don't know if anyone really could say confidently one way or the other. If you've heard my commentary, you know how I feel about Donald J. Trump. But I heard people in the courtroom say, I don't know. Who knows? It's a jury. We don't know who the jury is. People, they're anonymous. I don't know how many Asians there were there. That was my interest. But now we know Donald Trump guilty of all 4 felony counts, or all 34 felony counts. It's really remarkable. In some ways, you just want to you just want to sit and just think about our democracy, our country, and think about what it means to have the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party to run for president in 2024, to have him convicted, to be a convicted felon. Now, certainly he's going to appeal, but you've got a unanimous verdict on 34 counts. He's going to see jail time. I don't see how you can say, well, you get off for good behavior. You'll get off for, you just separated mothers from their children on the southern border during your presidency. But we're going to, that's the worst you've done in your life. No, he's done far worse. I'm just saying, you got to think back and say, okay, does he get off time for good behavior? For the first conviction, although this is monumental, 34 convictions. So he might serve maybe 6 months. He might get 6 months. But this is incredible. Look, this is no time to gloat. I know some of my viewers will say, well, what a great day, justice is served. Yeah, but it's also a time to really reflect and say, what does this mean? And will this bring our country together, or will it split our country even more? There are some polls that suggested that, well, it doesn't matter if Trump is convicted. Doesn't matter what the jury said. It's not going to matter to the MAGA types. And there are a lot of MAGA types who will probably be emboldened by this. But they weren't in the jury. They didn't hear the evidence. They only heard Trump's lies. They only heard that one side that Trump would say in social media and what the right-wing media put out, that, oh, witch hunt. This is not a witch hunt. This is justice in America. And here it was, the man who wants to be president again, the man who was once president, wants to be president again. 34 counts. I was just stunned. I thought, well, maybe the first 5, maybe Trump will get by with a mixed verdict, right? You heard that the jurors wanted time to fill out the forms, 34 counts, maybe that they had to take time to distinguish between, which counts they're going to get him on and which counts not enough. But in the end, each count was guilty. We're talking about the invoices, we're talking about the checks, we're talking about the lying, the falsification of documents in the furtherance of another crime, which is the felony. Because the other crime, which they didn't have to prove federal election law, but if it was clear that Trump wanted to hide from the voters information about his affair with Stormy Daniels, that this was part of Catch and Kill, that this was part of the whole campaign, right? After the Access Hollywood tape, this was how they were going to deal with all these untoward stories about Donald Trump. They were going to catch and kill him. That's why the David Pecker testimony was important, friend of Trump, and the jury had to hear the testimony from Pecker and compare it with what Michael Cohen said, because if you think Michael Cohen's a liar, then you get rid of Michael Cohen's testimony and say, how does David Pecker's testimony match up with Michael Cohen's testimony? And if you think Michael Cohen is a liar, just like the defense said, okay, toss out Michael Cohen's testimony, just go with what David Pecker said. And that was enough to convict, clearly, because that's what the jury asked for. And then the jury asked for other things about that meeting with Pecker. They didn't ask anything about Hope Hicks, I noticed. But I think Hope Hicks, being a witness who is loyal to Trump. I mean, these weren't people who were Trump enemies that were speaking out. Pecker was in cahoots with Trump. He got immunity, which is why he was speaking freely, but he dinged Trump. And then there was Hope Hicks. She testified that Trump knew everything, and that's what did it. I mean, in my mind, from the evidence I saw, we're going to have to ask the jurors, but we don't even know who the jurors are, really. I mean, we know their occupations. No doubt someone will dox them, and we will see. But I know I'm not gloating. I'm not gloating. What I'm feeling now is, man, what's going to happen to our country? How will people react? And will people react responsibly? Meaning, will they honor the rule of law? Honor the fact that a jury has spoken, has heard the evidence, and will abide by the rule of law. Now, here's the thing about Trump. Trump is not. If Trump wouldn't abide by an election, is he going to abide by the rule of law? And his behavior from here on will determine if he is worthy to be called a candidate for a second term for the presidency of the United States. I mean, he was president once. All right, let's not talk about spilt milk, right? That was done. We have our opinions of how good or bad a president he was. But now we have something real now that we can assess and say, how is the president going to react to this? Or the former president? Is he going to abide by this, or is he has the right, certainly, to appeal. But how is he going to conduct himself? You know, he was almost threatened again with breaking that gag order. And so many times before today, he was right up there. And, you know, he was almost threatened with jail time. Go off into the corner, Donnie. Didn't happen today. But now let's see how he behaves as this day plays out. I don't know, do they put him in shackles? Is he given time to turn himself in? He's there in court. Do they take him into custody and book him right away? Give him the orange jumpsuit? Or I imagine he will appeal and hope to have the appeal happen after November? No, he would still be a convicted felon. Uncharted waters. Anyway, I had to weigh in. It happened during our time when we're together here. Emil, Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. I had to weigh in. Let's see what happens now. What Trump's going to come out of the courthouse, and we'll hear what he has to say. And I'll come back later, but I had to jump in. Like I said, this is no time for gloating. No time for cheering. If you cheer for anything, cheer for the rule of law. Cheer for our country, our democracy. But I'm sad for Donald Trump. because he will tell us the kind of president he would be if, by his actions, if the Republicans still stand behind him. And so far, the polls were suggesting that a good number of Republicans were going to stand behind Donald Trump, that if convicted, they would stick by him. I think something like 7% were up for grabs in this latest Marist poll that was put out within the last couple days. If Donald Trump is found guilty in the hush money trial, less likely to vote for Trump, just 7%. But in battleground states, 7% is significant. More likely to vote for Trump, 24%. Those are the diehards. Would not make a difference. That's the funny part. 68% say, hey, I'm on vacation. Pay attention to this. This is history. It's never happened ever before in our country. It's significant. And this is something worth meditating over, really. I mean, just like sitting down and thinking, what does this mean for our country? And if Republicans, people who were likely to vote for him, just did that and thought about what it meant for our country, what it meant for all of us, not just for Republican interests, not just for, a big story today is that the Republican billionaires have lined up. The Republican billionaires have lined up and are now backing Trump, are like dumping money into Trump's campaign. Billionaires are dumping money and almost making up for the fact that Biden has more money than Trump right now in the campaign coffers. But the latest is casino magnate Miriam Adelson. Her husband was a big Trump supporter, Sheldon Adelson, and they contributed up to $90 million to preserve America in 2020. So, they're coming in big. Here's another one who's coming big. Blackstone CEO Steve Schwarzman told Axios last week that he would support and donate to Trump after previously calling for a new generation of leaders. So Steve Schwarzman of Blackstone. Hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman, he's the guy who went out. He's a Harvard graduate who said was going to pull money from Harvard and other campuses, crusaded against DEI. He said he is likely to endorse Trump, according to the Financial Times. You got Norman Peltz, who said he regretted voting for Trump after the Capitol attack, but now he's saying that he is likely to vote for or give money to Trump. So you got these billionaires now that you got the verdict. This was reported like last night. Now with the verdict in, the guy's guilty, convicted. Does capitalist Wall Street money now want to funnel themselves into Donald Trump's, the convicted campaign? That's worthy of, I don't know. Already the Wall Street, or the New York Times, Trump guilty on all counts. Jury hands down historic conviction in hush money case. Donald Trump convicted of falsifying records to cover up a sex scandal that threatened his ascent to the White House in 2016. He is the first American president to be declared a felon, a stain he will carry as he seeks to regain the presidency. Those are the first three sentences on the New York Times website. 11 counts related to invoices, 12 counts related to ledger entries, 11 counts related to checks. Guilty on 34 counts. That's Donald Trump. And, he does not look good. Donald Trump does not look good. The sentencing for Trump is scheduled for July. So, convicted today to cover up. Now, that's a key thing. The fact that they use the term cover up, I think, is important because people understand cover up. You hear the term cover up, you understand. Oh, you did something wrong. So convicted of falsifying records to cover up a sex scandal that threatened to derail his 2016 presidential campaign. 2016, we're talking 8 years ago. Some people say, oh, that was 8 years ago. Spilled milk. No, it's important. You killed someone 8 years ago, you don't say, oh, spilled milk. No, you get them when you can get them. They got him. It caps an extraordinary trial that tested the resilience of the American justice system and will reverberate into November's election, says the New York Times. Trump convicted on all 34 counts by a jury of 12 New Yorkers. Now, you know, there were 2 lawyers there, and there were some financial guys, and I know there was at least one black woman, a teacher, and then they put a clamp on information so people can find out who they were. But one physical therapist, a smart jury. But really, in all honesty, they didn't take much time. 2 days, 12 hours or so to reach a decision about this case. It says a former president sat largely expressionless, a glum look on his face after the jury issued its verdict. I down and pick up the soap whenever he wants in jail. He'll in prison. He'll have Secret Service guys making sure that he is okay. So, you know, you got to look at the journalism just to see how simply they put it. If you were going to put all of this into one sentence, this is the beauty of journalism, right? So, Donald J. Trump, the former president and presumptive 2024 Republican nominee, was convicted on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in a case stemming from a payment that silenced a porn star. That's from the New York Times. And their headline is pretty graphic. Trump guilty on all counts. On all counts. Now, here's a question. Can he still run for president if he's convicted? And apparently, Trump can. Let's see. I have to go into... I got this damn paywall. Damn paywall says, I'm not going to let you see this story, Emil. But they should. I pay. I paid my dues. Okay, let's see. All right, here it is. This is written by Maggie Astor in the Times. Can Trump run again? Right? And it says the Constitution and U.S. law have clear answers for only some of the questions raised by the criminal conviction of a major presidential candidate. Not since Eugene V. Debs campaigned from a prison cell more than a century ago has the United States experienced what is now happening, a prominent candidate with felony convictions running for president. And never before has that candidate been someone with a real chance of winning. This is maybe the biggest thing about Donald Trump being convicted. There are still people who aren't convinced that he does not belong in the White House again for a second time. There are still people who think that Donald Trump is fit to be president. He's fit for an orange jumpsuit, and I think that's about it. But is he fit to be president? I mean, I think that's the question. No. So you got this Manhattan jury convicting Trump, falsifying business records to cover up a hush money payment to a porn star. He's been charged with dozens of other felonies across 3 additional cases, 2 federal and 1 in Georgia. He's got, as I said in my columns, he's got more than enough to say, hey, is this man worthy of the presidency again? So now he faces no formal campaign restrictions. He remains highly competitive in his polls, but his sentencing on the New York convictions approach on July 11th and the other case is still looming, and the Constitution isn't clear what should happen. So the decision is probably going to rest with the federal judges, whom are mostly appointed by Donald Trump right now. So here's the question that the Times asked. Can Trump still run after his conviction? The answer is yes. The Constitution sets very few eligibility requirements for presidents. They must be at least 35 years old, be natural born. That doesn't mean his hair, but they must be natural born citizens and have lived in the United States for at least 14 years. That appears to be true with Trump. There are no limitations based on character or criminal record. While some states prohibit felons from running for state and local office, these laws do not apply to federal offices. And that's the loophole that sneaks Donald Trump in his orange jumpsuit through the gates to allow him to run if the Republicans still want him. That's a big question. The Republican and Democratic parties have guaranteed spots on general election ballots in every state, and the parties tell election officials whose name to put in their spot. States could, in theory, try to keep Mr. Trump off the ballot by passing legislation requiring a clean criminal record, but that could be possibly unconstitutional. We let states set the time, place, and manner of elections, according to Jessica Levinson of Loyola Law School, who specializes in election law. She says, but I think the best reading of our Constitution is you don't let the state add new substantive requirements. So it looks like he is still able to run. Now, what about the 14th Amendment? The Supreme Court ruled unanimously in March that states could not keep Mr. Trump off their ballots under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which disqualifies people who engage in insurrection or rebellion. So they can't keep Trump off their ballots because of that. Numerous lawsuits had argued that Mr. Trump's actions before and on January 6, which are the subject of 2 criminal cases against him, but not the one in which he was convicted, met this bar. In December, the Colorado Supreme Court found him ineligible. Maine Secretary of State did the same, but the Supreme Court, led by a conservative supermajority with 3 justices appointed by Trump, concluded that only Congress had the power to enforce Section 3 against candidates for federal office. Congress is not going to do that with Republicans in control of the House, and the 14th Amendment is separate from criminal cases, meaning convictions in the election-related cases would not disqualify Trump either. So the only thing that's left is, now that Trump has secured a majority of delegates to the Republican convention, the party has really no mechanism to nominate anyone else. I mean, you could say, could the party replace him? Well, he's already got the delegates. So under the party's official rules, the Republican Party's official rules, if a delegate tries to support someone other than the person the primary results bound them to, such support shall not be recognized, nor have top Republicans shown any interest in another nominee. So it looks like he's going to run. It looks like he has enough to continue to run. And it looks like America will be a kind of laughingstock if it has a convicted felon who could possibly be the leader of the free world. That's not a good look. The Times also asked, what happens if Trump is elected from prison? And Erwin Chemerinsky, who's a constitutional law expert at UC Berkeley, says, hey, we don't know. This has never happened. We'd just be guessing. So legally, Trump remains eligible to be president, even if he were imprisoned. Constitution doesn't say. The framers never thought we'd have a situation where in a country that honors the rule of law, we'd have someone who is a lawbreaker, who doesn't honor the rule of law. But that should set off bells in people's heads about, do we really want this guy? In practice, the election of an incarcerated president would create a legal crisis that would almost certainly need to be resolved by the courts. And of course, once again, the courts are kind of dominated by a lot of Trump appointees. Now, what if Trump is elected with cases still in progress? In the two federal cases, most likely a Trump-appointed attorney general would withdraw the charges. As you know, we thought that's why they wanted delay, so that if he wins and he just eliminates the cases. The reason why we wouldn't want to indict a sitting president are the reasons we wouldn't want to prosecute a sitting president, said Professor Chemerinsky of Berkeley. He says, my guess is if the Trump prosecution were still ongoing in some way and Trump were elected, the Justice Department, which would be the Trump Justice Department, would say, we're following the 1973 memo. So that really is pretty much what's at stake now. We're going to have Trump sentenced in July. Oh, we're going to want to see that. And I think he's probably going to get, I believe he could get up to 4 years. Although 34 counts, is that 4 years for each count? I mean, it's serious. This is a serious thing. But good behavior, first time offense, criminal offense. I mean, he's offended in the past, but this is the first criminal offense. They're probably 6 months. I mean, I've heard people say 6 months. 6 months. I think 6 months. Anyway. All right. I'm just glad to share some of my reactions with you. Share some of them with me. Go to my either Facebook page and give me your comments, or send me an email. I'll read your emails. Emil Amok at gmail.com. That's it. That's our show today. Hey, thank you for listening. I knew I'd get back. I get back from Orlando and I can't say all hell is broken loose, but I just think we just need to, within this hour, where we've heard the verdicts, to just think about what this means to live in America, to be American, to live in a democracy. And if you are one of those 68% who say, oh, a Trump conviction doesn't mean anything, it should mean more than you think. It should mean more, a lot more than you think. So, we like to conclude with a little meditation because it makes us feel good. And it's good. It's good. A little loving kindness. A little loving kindness to all the Republicans out there who are feeling really pretty bad right now. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. My column comes out tomorrow. Till then, look for it in all the various venues I write. Till next time. Emil Guillermo here. Emil Amok.